podcast, episode number 11. I'm pretty excited about this one. We're going to talk about following the path of Satan, and we're going to talk about following the path of God, because I have definitely experienced both, and I've walked with Satan for probably for 10 years, and I've walked with God for about 6 months, and the difference between the two is substantial. So here's some differences right off the bat. God will still you, Satan will rush you. God will reassure you, Satan will frighten you. God will lead you, Satan will push you. God enlightens you, Satan confuses you. God forgives you, Satan condemns you. God calms you, Satan stresses you. God encourages you, Satan discourages you. God comforts you, and Satan worries you. I think the most important thing about the two is being able to recognize the voice of each one. Satan will talk to you as a best friend, and he is very convincing, trying to get you to come to his side. God won't necessarily talk to you unless you're looking for his voice, while Satan is just always there in the back of your head. Also, the more that you're favored by God, I feel like the more Satan will try to talk to you and try to convince you to come the other way, in the other direction. I feel like God was always in my life trying to guide me, but I was oblivious to his voice and his leadings, and I was more so wanting to go down my own path, which I think was definitely encouraged by the devil. So when God created the world, we are told that God examined it and declared it that it was good. Genesis 1:31. This means that the angelic world did not have evil or angels or demons at the time. But by Genesis chapter 3, we find that Satan, in the form of a serpent, was tempting Eve to sin. Lucifer actually means star of the morning. He was held at a high-ranking position in the angelic host. He had exquisite beauty and great wisdom and was given a position of great power and influence. So what led to his fall? Since his heart became proud of his incredible beauty, Lucifer allowed the perfection to cause his corruption. Lucifer was not satisfied with worshiping God. Instead, he wanted to be worshipped. Once a beautiful, powerful angel of God, he lost his former exalted position in heaven. Lucifer, star of the morning, then became Satan, other known as the accuser, when he fell to the earth. When Satan fell, he did not fall alone. The scriptures tell us that he took 1/3 of the angels with him. Those fallen angels are now demons, and they do his bidding. So basically, at one point, God and Satan were side by side together, until eventually pride had gotten in the way and God had casted him back down to earth. He rebelled against the plan of God and was subsequently cast out. For those who believe, keep believing. For those who don't believe, I'm telling you, there's something bigger than us in this world. And the moment that you could experience it is the moment that you'll start to build your own belief system on it. It's funny because Satan almost controls your thoughts in a sense. And there was a time of my life where I thought in a very negative manner. I used to look at people and be very judgmental of them. I used to think very aggressively. If somebody would look at me the wrong way, I'll be that guy like, what are you looking at? Like, it would start an issue for who knows what reason. I think that was the doing of the devil. I used to actually love to sin, and I used to get a thrill from it, and it used to make me feel good breaking the law and going against humanity. There came a moment in my life where I started becoming unattracted by these behaviors. And once I started becoming unattracted by them, I realized that that was God trying to pull me in a certain direction. The moment God started pulling me, the devil started pulling me as well, and it became like a tug of war battle, and there was a lot of spiritual warfare that had happened in my life. I've seen demons with my own eyes, and I know it sounds crazy, but I was definitely not dreaming. There'd be times where I would walk into a room of my house, particularly my booth, and I used to have this painting of New York City that was screwed into the wall. Days upon walking in that room, the painting would remove itself from the wall with such a force that it would hit me in the back of the head, and it really, really hurt. I started noticing weird things going on with my mirrors in my house. I used to hear these voices that were crystal clear. For example, I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and when she wouldn't be home, I would hear her voice calling me from the other room for me to go into the other room, and she's just not there. There was one matter in particular where I started knowing that I needed a shift in my life, and I started hearing voices trying to pull me in a better direction. And one night when I went to sleep, I experienced something a little crazy. I remember laying in bed. I was next to my girlfriend at the time, and I was trying to fall asleep, and I couldn't really fall asleep. All of a sudden, I saw a white flash from the right corner of my room, and I just came up with an excuse for it. I said that it was just a passing car or something, the reflection, whatever it may be. And to be honest, I lived right off of a main road. It was right behind my house, and that has never happened before. So I just let it go. Was laying there for a little bit longer, and then all of a sudden the same flash, like somebody was taking a picture, happened on the left side of my room. And I just ignored it again. I was like, all right, something's a little weird, but I'm just gonna go to bed. And I remember that laying there with my eyes closed, and I was trying to fall asleep, and then all of a sudden my girlfriend, or I thought was my girlfriend, started kissing me. And I was just rolling with it because I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't even open my eyes. Like, she was right next to me, and I just knew that it was, like, I had that feeling that it was her. And then things started, like, escalating a little bit, and I opened my eyes. And when I opened my eyes, she wasn't there. And I turned to look, and she was dead asleep. And I remember trying to wake her up, and she was so dead asleep that she wasn't even waking up. And I was like, what was just making out with me? And what was just touching me? Like, I felt almost violated in a sense. And then I sat there for a good 20, 30 minutes just contemplating my life. And I thought that I was dreaming. I got out of bed. I was walking around, and I was trying to, like, wake myself up, but I wasn't dreaming. So I was like, all right, let me go back to sleep. I'm just going to ignore that. And I remember laying there trying to fall asleep. And as I was trying to fall asleep, all of a sudden I had this chill, and the room became really, really dark, darker than it normally was. And something grabbed me by my ankles. And as it grabbed me by my ankles, I had my eyes closed, and I just clenched my fists. And I knew that it wasn't a person. Like, I can't really explain it, but I just knew that it wasn't a person. And I was ready to just start kicking ass as to whatever this thing is. This thing is about to rip me out my bed. It had such a force behind it. I felt like my ankles were going to snap. And I was like, nah, this thing's about to rip me out my bed, and I'm rocking its shit as hard as I possibly can. And I'm just going to start screaming and teeing off. And all of a sudden, I didn't get ripped out of my bed, but my closet doors had opened up. And they never would be open, especially because my girlfriend at the time, she would always specifically make me close the closet doors because she didn't like the closet. I don't know if she had a vibe from it too, but there's something weird about the energy in my apartment. And I remember the closet doors opening, and there was just a darkness. Like, it was almost like an infinite darkness. And I kind of, like, sat up in my bed a little bit, and I just saw in infinity what it seemed like was just this lady standing there, and she was just smiling at me. And the only way I could describe her was a colonial Ellen DeGeneres with wooden teeth. And she just had this crooked smile that was, it was like scary. She had like George Washington teeth in a sense. And I remember getting up out of my bed and start walking to the closet. And I got to the closet, and then all of a sudden, it was like a flash into another dimension. And I turned around, and my girlfriend was no longer in the bed. I was still in my bedroom, but I don't know if you've ever seen Stranger Things. It was almost like a bunch of dust floating in the air. Everything was dark, like I was on the other side kind of thing. And I was just, she started getting closer, and from the infinite darkness in my closet, she was getting closer and closer until eventually I was basically face to face with her. And my body was frozen. Like I wanted to reach out and try to touch her and try to but I couldn't. I couldn't move my arms. I couldn't do anything. And I was just stuck. And then all of a sudden there was a bang from downstairs. My family lived downstairs at the time. And that bang, I guess, snapped me back into my room. And then I was just standing in my room. Everything was back to normal. And I sat at the edge of my bed. This was all probably at like 2 or 3 in the morning. I sat at the edge of my bed until probably 5:30, 6 a.m. Started getting a little dusk outside, and it just had my mind running in circles for the night. Eventually, I convinced myself that it was just a dream, and I lied back in bed, and I remember just staring at the ceiling. And like how you would watch a music video sometimes and the words would like pop up on the screen, words popped up on my ceiling and I heard them being spoken, but it was not a human voice. It was almost, they were spoken to me in this dark, dark tone. And as they were being spoken, they were popping on my ceiling, and all it said was, "It knows what I can do now." And then I remember just sitting there thinking, what is that supposed to mean? Like, what do you mean? Like, it knows what I could do now. Like, what, you can manifest yourself into a person that I love, or you can bring me into another dimension, or you can, like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna kill me? Are you gonna? I did not know what that meant at all, and I was so confused. And I remember just laying there. At this point, I'm wide awake. Like, there's no shot I'm going back to bed. And I remember laying there, and in the corner of my eye, I saw the same lady that I saw from the closet, and she started sprinting across my room. And I shit you not, she did a dive and went right into the mirror that was on the wall. And I was like, oh, yeah, nah, I'm getting rid of that mirror. That shit got to go. So I don't even remember. I just remember laying in bed. I think eventually I was so tired and so exhausted from everything that just happened that I had fell back asleep. And I remember waking up in the morning, explaining everything to my girlfriend. I was like, yo, you didn't like kiss me in the middle of the night last night. And she was like, no, what are you talking about? And to be honest, she wouldn't just start sucking on my face while I was sleeping. Like, she was not that type of person. Like, if there was anything that she wanted to do, like, she would have woke me up respectfully. Like, she wouldn't have just started doing that. So I kept explaining to her what happened. She didn't really believe me. I don't think she believed me. I don't think, honestly, anybody would believe this story. It sounds really far-fetched. But I remember just saying, we got to get rid of this mirror. We got to get rid of this mirror. It's got to go. It's got to go. It's got to go. And I was thinking, like, okay, what do I do? I was like, I'm just going to put it on the corner of the street and the garbage guys will take it and I never have to worry about it again. And I go to take it off the wall. And as I'm taking it off the wall, as soon as I touch it, I'm looking at myself in the mirror. And as soon as I touch it, my eyes just went completely black. Like, it was like my pupil just widened and there was no white in my eye. It was just all black. And I was looking at myself with these deep, big black eyes. And then I got scared and I let go of the mirror and then my eyes went right back to normal. And I was like, I can't just get rid of this mirror. Like, something like this, I have to do some research. So I sat there for the whole morning, wasted basically my whole day. Not wasted, but I spent my whole day doing research, figuring out how to get rid of a haunted mirror. It was telling me that I had to either bury the mirror on a church site or go and bury the mirror in the graveyard. And I was thinking to myself, there's no way with my record that I'm going to get away with digging up the ground at a church or at a graveyard. I'm going to get bagged in 2 seconds, and they're not going to believe my story. They're going to think I'm crazy, and they're going to send me to a loony bin, and I'm not going to see the light of day again. So I was like, I'm not doing that. I was like, all right, there has to be another option. I started looking into it. It said that you could sell the mirror if you let the buyer know that it's haunted. They'd have to be willing to buy a haunted mirror. I was like, I'm not going to go through with that. So it said, if you can't get rid of the mirror, wrap the mirror in a blanket, make sure the blanket's tight, put the mirror in a dark space with closed doors, and make sure that the mirror is facing up against the wall so nothing could come out of it again. And I was like, all right, so that's what I'm going to do. I think the mirror's still at my parents' house in a closet, just wrapped up, just chilling, hanging out. And I really hope that my dad didn't throw it out or do anything crazy with it, because they say there's a lot of superstitions out there, but they say that a broken mirror is 7 years of bad luck. I don't even want to know what would happen if that mirror broke and that thing was released into the world. I don't even want to know. So I haven't really thought about it. We haven't talked about it since. I ran downstairs. I was doing all this stuff with the mirror, trying to bless it and trying to wrap it up. And my mom was looking at me like I'm crazy. She's like, what are you doing with this mirror? I told her the story. She was like, all right. And it was just a very, very weird situation. Then I started doing more research after the fact, and I was trying to convince myself that it never happened, but it definitely did. And I learned that the Jewish community, they have a lot of open caskets in their own homes, and they specifically take all the mirrors off the wall when they do so, or they cover the mirrors with a blanket or a tarp or something, because it's known that when spirits pass, they gravitate towards mirrors and they trap themselves in them. Hey man, something's weird about the mirrors. If you have a haunted mirror, just try to figure out your situation appropriately. That was just one of the things that I had experienced on a more demonic side, which was so weird. And basically it was just back and forth with the devil for a very long time of my life, where he was, in a sense, taking control over my mind and making me think that bad things were okay, and making me think that like hitting licks and selling drugs and stealing drugs from people just to sell them and shootings were cool and this and that. And it was like I almost wanted to, like, it sounds crazy, but I almost wanted and felt like it was okay just to kill people and just go about my life like that doesn't matter. Once I shut those doors and I opened the doors to God and I started praying, and honestly the first time I ever prayed in my life was when I was 24 years old. It was right before I turned 25. It was in August of 2023. It was the month that my grandfather died. I remember he was in the hospital. He was very sick. I remember I was in Miami trying to figure out how to get my real estate license out in Miami. And no matter how hard I tried to go down certain directions, the doors were just shutting. I went and I passed my test on the first try for my health insurance license. I was studying for my real estate license, and as I was taking the tests, I was passing them, and then I would get to the next step and it would just be denied. And I would get these letters in the mail saying that, you know, based on your record, we can't accept you into this field. And I was just confused because I had a lot of things going for me in New Jersey. So I was like, why not over here? And I was almost losing myself, kind of. And I felt very out of place. And I was going back and forth with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my ex. And there was a lot of things happening. Like, my family seemed like they were just downgrading in a sense. And everything felt like it was going backwards instead of forward. And I remember I was like, all right, I'm just going to pray. And I'm going to see what happens. I've never done this before. I don't know how to do it. But I just remember standing there. I just looked up and I was like, what do I do with my life? Like, nothing's going my way. And as I'm asking, what do I do with my life? Before I could even finish my sentence, my body froze. And I had this, like, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. And the word music came out of my mouth without me even speaking it. It's like some other force spoke it into the universe for me. From then on out, I was like, all right, I'm going to walk with God and I'm going to see what happens, because I feel like that was a message from the Holy Spirit and I need to pursue that. So as I started walking with God, he was guiding me in certain directions. He was guiding me to get rid of my jewelry. I ended up selling my Porsche. He was guiding me to start talking differently, start thinking differently. I started getting unattracted by certain behaviors and certain words. I don't like the F word anymore, and I used to say it. It used to be every other word in my sentence, and now it's like when I hear it, I almost like cringe a little bit, and there's just certain things that were happening that just seemed to be aligning in the right way, and I started shaping myself into a different person. And I really think that it was another power giving me the strength to do so. All my finances were drained and there were doors closing everywhere around me. This was closed. And there was just one path, one clear path in front of me, and it was music. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about the girls. Don't worry about the fame. Don't worry about the cars. Don't worry about the jewels. Don't worry about nothing. Worry about music. So I started doing so, and I was like, well, how am I going to even survive out here? How am I going to eat? How am I going to pay the bills? I have nothing to my name now. Like, everything is gone, and a sense of comfort overwhelmed me, and I just knew that it didn't matter. I knew that there was a particular direction to head in, and all those things would come. And as I kept walking foot after foot after foot, things started coming to me as I needed them. I'd be like, okay, my rent's coming up. All of a sudden, I got like $3,000, or all of a sudden, a family member wants to help me, or all of a sudden, I got called for a little side hustle and just made a good amount of money out of nowhere. And it was just, things were just coming as I needed them. It wasn't more, it wasn't less. It was just the amount that I needed to just keep going. I was looking behind me at all the doors that closed, and then as I kept walking, this door would open, that door would open, this door would open. I knew that there was something that had to be done with music, but I didn't know exactly what it was. And then I'm just scrolling through YouTube, and then all of a sudden this educational video would pop up. And it would be just the knowledge that I needed to move down the right direction. And I would get all these words from other people. It just kept saying, like, TikTok, short form content, focus on that. And then I started doing so, and at first I was not very good at it at all, and I was getting discouraged. I was like, how long is this going to take? And as I would think those thoughts, boom, I remember my algorithm hit me with a Code of the Friend video, and he explained how for like 8 months he was posting TikTok videos, like 3 TikTok videos a day. They were only hitting like 200, 300 views. And then all of a sudden on that 8th or 9th month, boom, now he's got like 4 million monthly listeners on Spotify or something like that. And it was just like, okay, that's what I have to do. And I remember starting the journey, wasn't very good at it, didn't really know how to do it. And as I kept going, I would wake up and I would just have a new thought, or just, it almost seemed like I was developing certain skills in my sleep. And I remember wanting better quality, like, how do I get better quality? All of a sudden, the next video I made was just better quality, like without me even trying. I was like, okay, how do I get better audio? How do I make it sound better? Like, it looks good now, but how do I make it sound better? And then all of a sudden, the next video sounded exactly how I wanted it to sound. And it was just not coincidental. There was just thing after thing after thing that was almost too good to be true. I just know it's coming from something higher. So the moment that I experienced God's hand being placed on me, that's when I became a full believer. My whole life, I've always believed in the universe aligning things and like, oh, well, the universe did that, universe did this. The universe was created by something. So it's not the universe, it's a higher power, even more than the universe. The universe is made up of certain elements, even gravity, where if gravity was slightly more powerful, the world would just collapse on itself. And if it's slightly less powerful, then everything would just float away. It's just perfect, exactly how it needs to be. I just started diving into God more, and as I started doing it, more doors would open. I would have more of an urge to sit down. At first, I was like, all right, I got to pray every day and start figuring out like Bible study every day and do this and do that. And at first, it was almost like a hassle. As I would do it, I would get tired and I'd have this thought in the back of my head like, this is stupid, this doesn't make sense, and close it, X out of the video, close the book, stop. And that was the devil trying to just keep me on that side. And at first I was just forcing myself to do it, and now I'm at the point where I'll do a half hour minimum every day, but that half hour most days is not enough for me now. It's like I find myself doing an hour, and then all of a sudden I'll be on a dog walk and I'll be like, all right, I have to listen to some ministry, like while I'm walking my dog. Like, I don't want to listen to music, I want to listen to ministry. I want to listen to somebody explaining Bible verses to me. I want to listen to something more holy. And it just started flowing to me in a sense that I could not explain. I feel like there's two paths in life that you can take. One is guided by the devil. It's going to lead to toxicity. It's going to lead to destructive habits. It's going to lead to repeating mistakes. It's going to lead to breaking relationships and all the negative. And there's another one that's guided by God, and it's going to lead to strength. It's going to lead to wisdom. It's going to lead to power. It's going to lead to security. You could really choose either one, to be honest. The devil's always going to be pulling on you, but God's not forcing you to go anywhere. He's just there if you choose to let him in. And the moment you choose to let him in, you're going to be granted strength, wisdom, and opportunities that you didn't even think were possible. At the end of the day, it's really up for you to decide. I just hope that you make the right choice, and I hope that you can experience something like I experienced from both ends, from both parties, and it will give you more motivation to go down the right one.